Everyone, welcome to the video. And today we have Shahed with us, and we are discussing with Shahed about technical writing. And in this video, we are focusing on the how we can start contributing to technical writing with the help of technical writing to open source project. And Shahid is a she's a working at Medusa as a technical writer, and she contributed to the open source project with the API documentations and all the stuff. So our discussion around that, and would be great, Shahid, if you just start with a little bit introduction about yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Shahed, and I am the technical writer at Medusa, as you mentioned. I take care of the documentation, from writing it to developing the tools that are necessary to create the websites for the documentation and generate references for the documentation. And I also work closely with the engineering team so that we can transform the features that we create into learning resources in our documentation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a thanks for brief introduction. And the very first thing that I want to ask you as a technical writer, it would be possible that if you don't have a much technical knowledge, if you don't have a much technical knowledge, you can start with technical writing. But I don't believe it's true. As a technical writer, you should know the technical things, the clarity you have as a technical person, then you can write the better way as a technical writer if you know the technical uh if you have a technical clarity. So like what your opinion on that?
Yes, I think the misconception comes from the difference in how people treat technical writing and companies treat technical writing, because there's first of all, there's the technical content writing, which is usually done on a blog and you document what you're learning. And this is something that is good for beginner and programmers with the beginner level, because they can write about everything that they're learning, and it's a great learning process as well. And a lot of companies hire technical content writers to do that exactly. And with that type of job, it's not that you don't need technical knowledge, but even if your technical knowledge is a little bit lower, you can learn on the go, because a lot of the pieces that you write are tutorials, and so you can learn them and write them. But again, it's about the company's position. A lot of companies hire technical writers for different positions. If you're working like me with the documenting an open source solution and documenting its features and generating references and all of that, you definitely need technical knowledge. If sometimes companies call technical writers or use the term technical writers for more stuff like user guides that are more aimed towards users, and that's when maybe technical knowledge isn't necessarily as important. But I think it all goes back to the type of job position that you have. All in all, I think it's definitely necessary to grow your technical knowledge to be a technical writer, especially if you're aspiring to work in documentation, because it would be very difficult to keep up with the engineering team if you don't have the same sort of level of understanding of the product that they're creating.
Yeah, like for the people, I'm just trying to simplify. If you are want to work closely with the engineering team as a technical writer, so it depends company to company. Some, as now Shahid now mentioned, some companies hire technical writers to write their tutorials, guides, and the thing that already present, you don't need to research. You just simplify the things in terms of as a writer. But if you want to do the things at tech level as a technical writer, so you know the tech knowledge, because developers create a API, so you have to test that those APIs with particular tools, just like Postman and lot of open source tools, Insomnia, and you are able to execute all the stuff, all the queries. Then you are able to explain to the non-technical people or the users of that particular product how you can use that, and that's how you will write a better documentation. So that's why you
Yes.
need better technical knowledge as a technical writer.
Yeah, and when you work with documentation, it also becomes sort of you become the bridge between technical users and the engineering team. And so a lot of
Yeah,
times you bring up ideas of how certain things can be improved, or certain things that could potentially be bugs that may not be caught at a first glance. So in those cases, again, it's important to have that technical knowledge.
yeah, it's better. And the second thing that I want to know how someone can get started with technical writing. Is a portfolio required as a technical writer, and uh, like how they can look their first job as a technical writer.
Yeah, so I think it's very similar to how you would level up as a programmer. It's a lot of practice. I would recommend, the way I started was writing in my own blog, or on Medium or on Dev2, all of these platforms. And just write about the things that the projects that you use, the things that you're learning, start realize, because when you do that, you start, just like with programming, as you practice, with time, you will get better. But if you want to also take it a next step into, diving into documentation, all of that, then there are a lot of books that could help. And one of them that helped me personally was Docs for Developers, because it gives you from 0 to 100 sort of all the different concepts you need to learn, all the things that you will be using in the documentation, all of that. So I would say start with writing, documenting the things that you're learning. If you find a cool project, start using it, and then see, okay, even if it's something that seems so simple, it still helps both for you and the people that are reading. And then once you get a little bit more comfortable and want to get to the next step, then you should probably start with learning about documentation and how you would document it for that, if you're interested in that area. Like I said, with books like Docs for Developers. Yeah.
Yeah. And how someone can get job as a technical writer. Just like assume that I want to be a technical writer. I started writing and I'm started documenting my journey on particular platform, just like Medium or Hashnode. And I write some piece of content in terms of technical things. I explain JavaScript or some Python concepts and want to get a job. So how I can reach out to
Yeah.
founders and open source CEOs or project maintainers that I want to work for you, like how someone can get that.
So usually you would apply on, career platforms like LinkedIn and all of that. And if you want to get into a specific open source project, then I would go into their documentation. Again, if that's the interest you have, I would go into their documentation page. A lot of them have the ability to kind of contribute to documentation, either with completely new pages or just editing the existing ones, like fixing typos or adding new notes that we may have missed and all of that. And so by getting into that sort of ecosystem that they have, you kind of have a better idea of what they need. And so that could help you kind of get into their community. And then if there's a job opening, you can also apply. And as someone who has already contributed, then that can help. If you're looking more into the blog sort of area, a lot of companies, they have writer programs where you can apply, and you can either pick topics or get assigned topics to write, and depending on each company, it handles it differently, but then you'll be featured on their website. A lot of companies like Strappy or SitePoint, or a lot of those companies, they have sort of the ability to sign up for them and write for topics either that you suggest or that they give you. And I think that's a lot of people think that it's difficult to join these websites, but it's actually pretty easy. You just go in and sign up, and if they send you topics and all of that, you can just start writing. It's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward.
And I also previously connect with some project maintainers of open source projects. They also mentioned every open source project definitely have a documentation page. So if you want
Yeah.
to contribute, you can go there. If you just found particular bug or particular issue in the documentation, create a PR. And the way you are submitting those PRs and fixing that bugs, people will recognize you. And if they have a particular opportunity for you, so they will definitely reach out to you compared to the people who just randomly apply to their for the particular
Yeah.
opportunity. You have proof of work
Yeah.
that you are capable to do that work.
Yeah, I agree. And it's actually pretty easy to contribute to documentation compared to like a core product where
Yeah,
you may need to know like how it all works. Whereas with documentation, if, for example, you find a typo you can easily, go ahead and edit it and contribute. Or if you're using it, and this is something that I, as someone that manages documentation, this is something that I always appreciate when someone is using the product and they find an issue that isn't highlighted in the documentation or something that is mishighlighted in the documentation, and they contribute, because it helps other community members using that tool as well, so that if they run into that same issue, they can find. So yeah, if you're using the tool that you like and you find some sort of missing information or some error in the documentation, go ahead and send a pull request, because it can both help.
Yeah, I agree. And one more thing to add, uh, there are different platforms which provides you platforms pay for people who write technical blogs for them, just like DigitalOcean and LogRocket, uh, and other platform also available. They have uh, guest author program, something called an open source projects, just like AppSmith. Do you know about the programs like Google Summer of Docs, Season of Docs, and so that kind of program help people to get opportunity as a technical writer. So do you recommend people who are looking for job or experience to be a part of that programs?
Yeah, I think that's also another way to practice and find a job. I think a lot of companies do hackathons. At Medusa, we also did hackathon a while back, a year ago, I think. But if you go on Dev2, if you go on Hashnode, you'll always find hackathons where you can write and participate in it. And not only is it a good way to practice, but yes, it puts you on the map and kind of helps companies find, good talents.
Yeah, I agree. And tell us about how you find a job at Medusa, like how you found that opportunity. Like the someone from Medusa team reach out to you from your proof of work, or you applied from somewhere.
No, I actually, so I have my own blog, and I write in it, and they found the blog and wanted me to write as a freelancer. And I wrote for Medusa on a blog, not on documentation, I think maybe 3-4 times. And then at a point they offered me the job. And that's how I ended up joining. And when I first started, it was more technical content writing in the blog, but then I moved into documentation.
That's interesting. And what are the salary expectations that beginner have as a technical writer if they want to get into the technical writing field as a fresher? So what are the salary expectations that you care, like you will give us a range between particular to particular numbers?
So the problem with this question is that because technical writing isn't very appreciated at all companies, they offer different ratios and sometimes even absurd ratios. I think if you're like just joining, maybe I think maybe like the minimum maybe would be 40K, 50K. There's a survey that I think Read the Docs did, and you'll find like how the different ranges are, but you'll also find that there are like a huge range difference. So you might go into another company where it's higher, you might go into another company where it's the minimum. So it really depends, but I would say maybe like 40, 50.
Okay, it depends to company, but the
Yes.
small range start from 40 to
Yes.
50. Okay,
Yes.
and like as a developer, people create a different communities, just like JavaScript, Python, and a lot of. So, do you know about any organizations or communities that specially focus on the technical writing people, help them with the resources, and also provide some opportunity? Do you know about any communities about that? Like, if you know, so share with us. Like, people who are watching this video will definitely.
Yeah, so I think the main one that is like the most popular one is the Read the Docs community. They have not only the necessary resources and I think also a book, but they also do conferences every year in different locations, and they bring together technical writers. That is like if you're talking about technical writing in general. And again, if you go into a lot of open source tools or companies in general, they have technical writing programs like I said, and some of them have sort of like dedicated communities for them. So for example, Strappy, they have like as part of their Discord community, they have a dedicated channel for technical writers. So if you're interested in an overall general sort of knowledge, then read the docs is definitely the go-to one. If you are, again, interested in a certain tool, then I would recommend to see the community that they provide exactly.
Okay. Read the docs. I know I'm a part of that community, and
Yes.
the writing HQ something community that I know. I'm not sure with the name, but definitely I will put all links in a description so
Yes.
people will definitely find. And other thing is like how your day looks like as a technical writer. Like what are the roles and responsibility you have to deal with? What are the tasks that you have to do as Medusa as a technical writer?
So again, this is my day as a technical writer who's working on documentation. For me, the tasks are usually either writing focused or more development focused. For writing focused, it's usually when we put out a new feature, have a new release. That's when we create guides for those releases. And so it depends on each release. Some releases require upgrade guides. Some releases require how-to guides. Some releases require conceptual guides. But all of that falls under writing these guides. And then there are certain areas where it requires development. And this is when I'm creating either features for the documentation, or right now I'm working on generating references in our documentation from source code that allow us to move into a more docs as code approach. And this would require working with more low-level sort of tools and automating tools and all of that. So when this is usually done when you want to improve the developer experience of the documentation, when you want to provide new features in the documentation, this is when you kind of go into developer mode, sort of. So yeah, it's a combination of both things.
Okay. And like tell us a little bit about Medusa, what it is, and someone want to contribute to the documentation. So suggest them. They already have documentation. So someone want to contribute, they can easily just go to documentation, fix some bugs, or check their repository if there improvement available at documentation. But is there anything that people can contribute to Medusa? First, start with the introduction about Medusa, and then someone can how contributed to Medusa.
Yes, so Medusa is an open source digital commerce solution, and the idea behind Medusa is that we want to solve the issues that companies and developers run into when they create commerce applications, by realizing that customization and composability is a core component of e-commerce or commerce applications. And so we provide the toolbox that allows developers and businesses to create custom commerce applications. If you want to contribute to the documentation of Medusa, so our main documentation is created with Docker source, and it's hosted in our GitHub repository. If you surf through the documentation, you'll find at the end of every page an edit this page button, where it will take you immediately into the GitHub editor, and you can make any changes if you find typos, if you find missing information, anything similar. If you have an idea, for example, for a missing documentation page, for example, a deployment guide to a hosting provider that we don't cover in our documentation, then you can always also open a pull request and it's that guide that you want to add. And we also have sort of like references, API reference and similar, where it's more in the generated from the code, but the comments are within the code. So you can also contribute there if you find any issues with the API reference or anything similar. So yeah, there are different opportunities to contribute in the documentation. You can also, if you go into the issues tab on GitHub, you may find easy to use or easy to solve documentation issues with the label type doc. So yeah, these are like the different opportunities from documentation perspective.
Yeah. So these are the ways that you can contribute to Medusa as a technical writer, as a documentation field, and as Shahed mentioned that they build with the Docusaurus, their documentation, and every page have the edit button, which after clicking that
Yes.
button, if you found a particular bug, you can just easily fix or create a PR. So someone can
Yes.
review your PR, and if it's uh, good to improve, people can fix that PR to the production. So that's how you can contribute. And yeah,
Exactly.
like these are the most people want to know these questions. And as a technical writer, the API documentation that you did as for Medusa, I know the Pramit. I work with Pramit as a community manager when he work as a content developer at AVL. So we both work together. And I believe Medusa, Pramit joined Medusa after AVL, and I read some of the
Mm.
documentation, API documentations, and which are really inspired me. And some of good technical writers, I'm just trying to surround with them and trying to learn from them how we can get started with that. So API documentation is something really interesting that I look forward to learn and look forward to simplify all the things, how we can simplify things for the non-technical people so they can understand easily and they can start contributing or coding something. So mm, this is not relevant, but how the technical writers, when the team of technical writers sit and what they talk about, like how the environment did. Personally, as a developer and community managers, when we sit, so we talk about the marketing strategies, how we can get more people into
Mm.
the community, how we can share with their resources and growth about the growth about the particular platform or product. So what are the discussions happen between the technical writers? Uh,
Yeah. So
uh,
yeah.
how many technical writers or the content writers team in the Medusa available?
Yeah, so at Medusa, I'm actually the only technical writer, but I work with Sebastian Rendem, who is the CEO of the company, and we basically manage the documentation sort of team together. And what we usually talk about is always like, so when you first build the documentation for your product, the main focus is getting as many guides in there as possible. But once you have the necessary documentation in place, it's always about how we can improve it for developers using it. And that could be from adding new features. It can be from what can we automate in our process, because once you move the documentation closer to code, that means that the documentation is more likely that it's true all the time, that it doesn't go outdated. So we always talk about, how we can improve the documentation for developers, what new features we can add, what we can automate, where are we, lacking. We always discuss different ideas of how we can make certain concepts clearer. So yeah, it's always about how we can take things to the next step so that we can make the process of learning Medusa easier for developers.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, like these are the questions that I want to ask. And a lot of people get an idea about the technical writing from this video, and they will definitely start contributing to open source as a technical writer, because a lot of people think as a technical writer, it's it's maybe easy to work, but to understanding all the technical things and then looking for the bugs and setting all the open source project to your local machine, that's take time, and you have to
Yeah.
yeah, you have to learn those things if you want to get into technical writing. It looks easy, but it's not. I personally experienced that. So yeah, these are the questions I want to ask. And thanks, Shahed, for sharing the time with us, and thanks for answering the questions. And yeah, really appreciate the time that you shared.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.